Hey guys, if you're learning automation or breaking into tech, join our free school community, Your Tech Step. I drop extra content, tools, and support you won't get on YouTube. It's free for now while we grow, so hop in while you can. The link is in the description. So today, we're going to be automating Dropbox's login page. So just go to dropbox.com, and then let's go ahead and go to login. Okay, so let's just close this pop-up here. So we have an email input field and a continue button. So let's make a test for this. So the first thing we want to do is open up our DevTools. So let's right click and inspect, or you can click the Control-Shift-C or the inspector cursor to inspect. Okay, so now let's take a look at our selectors. So let me zoom in a bit because I know some of you are on your phones. Okay, so we have an ID. You see this ID? This is not ideal. These numbers can change. Maybe it's not going to change, but it could. So we want to find a different selector. And guys, this is my first video with my braces on. I just got braces, so forgive me if I sound a little funny. Okay, so let's go ahead and I would use the name attribute, this Susai email. Susai, I'm not sure how they pronounce that, but SUSI_email, this is what I would use. And then let's take a look at our continue button. Okay, so this is the div that's inside of the button. So now so this is our actual button. So we have a class here. We have a bunch of classes actually. In fact, all of these are class names. Every one that's spaced is an individual class name. So we don't want to use these because a lot of these are probably shared. Okay, so excuse me. So what we can do is we can make an XPath for this guy. We can do by button, pick a class, and then say the type. So let's go ahead and go into C#. Okay, so the first thing we want to do, let's close some of these. Okay, so let's copy our variable page. Let's copy this variable page. And this is going to be our page object for the Dropbox login page. So we're going to be creating a page object for this screen. So let's bring this back over. Okay, so now we need to give this a proper name, and we'll call this Dropbox Dropbox login page. Okay, so let's change our public class because class names are unique. Change our constructor. Okay, so we won't need all of these. We just want to pick the ones we need. Excuse me. So we're gonna need name. So we don't need ID, and we're going to need XPath. So we'll need name and XPath. Okay, let me zoom in a bit so you guys can read that a little bit better. All right, so let's get rid of those. Let me just do some cleanup here. We only need these two for now. All right, so let's go back to our web page, get our selectors. So let's inspect email, and we'll grab this name. Oop, zoomed in too far, sorry about that. We can grab this name attribute value, and we are going to put it right here. And we'll give this a meaningful name. We'll call it email by, input by. And we need to place that here. And then we'll call this email input element. Okay, and then we want our continue button. So first, let's figure out, so we want to use the tag, one of the classes, and then the type. Excuse me. So let's go into our cheat sheet and figure out which XPath we can use that has excuse me, tag, class, and type. So this looks like the one we can use. So let's grab this one. Let's go back to our class. And here, let's write this out. So I believe it was button and let's see, maybe submit. Okay, so we'll use this email submit button, and then we'll use a type submit. Okay. Type is equal to submit, excuse me. Okay, and submit is all lowercase. Okay, so let's just change this. So button, email submit button goes between our single quotes, and the type submit goes in place of button here. So now let's take this part. Let's paste it in. And I did it outside of the double quotes because it will try to escape it. Excuse me. Okay. Okay, so now we need to use the elements we just created. So we have our excuse me, email input by, and we want to put that in here to wait. And then we also want to grab the input element, because that's how we're going to send our keys, so our username. And we don't have a password, I don't believe. It's just email and the continue button, so no password field. Okay. So we could just delete this, or we could just comment it out. Here, we'll just delete it. And we want to give this a proper name, so this will be continue button by, and we'll call this continue button element. You can click the element, and then we will wait for the continue by, the continue button by, the object of type by. Because this is how we wait for it, and then this is how we click it. Now there are ways, there's several ways to do this, guys, but this is a pattern that I like. Okay, so we don't need that. Okay, so that should be it for this class. Now let me see one other thing. We can check to see if our XPath is going to work. So before we go and create the test, let's make sure our XPath is going to work. So let's clear off the console here. Okay, hold on. So you may not be allowed to just paste, so you have to actually type allow pasting. Okay, so now I can paste the code. And so what this will do is this will check to see if it finds the element defined by this XPath, the one we created for the continue button. So let me just take that and paste it here. So I'm grabbing that from our class. So again, I took that from the continue button by, so we're going to see if this XPath is going to work before we even run our test. And then let's do enter. Oh wow, and it didn't find any. So that's not going to work. Okay, I'm actually kind of surprised. I really expected that to work. All right, it's no big deal. Let me see, did I make any typos? No. All right. Interesting. Yeah, that should have worked. But okay, that's, you know, maybe rel and type are, I see. Here, let me try this. Let's try this. Let's clean up this XPath actually. Let's get rid of, the type. Let's just say this. Oh no, it didn't work either. Okay, that's fine. So, all right, this is the fun part. We got to find another way to click this button. You know what? It actually might be my XPath. I think I see what's wrong here. So we should have used contains. So let's do this. Let's add contains. Let's fix that. Okay, that looks right. And then let's close this off here. All right, let's try this guy. That's exciting. That is very exciting. So that worked. Okay, so that's a lesson, guys. So sometimes the mistake that I made here was that we said that the class is equal to this. But since this element has so many class names, here, actually, hold on, let me copy that. Let me copy that quickly. All right. But because this element has so many class names, you can't just say it's equal to. So you have to say it contains. So don't make the same mistake I did. You know, otherwise you'll be frustrated why your test isn't working. So, all right, let's continue. All right, so now we know that our XPath is going to work. So let's replace this with. So this is why I didn't want to paste it originally, because it tries to escape it for you. So let me just. There we go. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is build the test. So now let's go to our example test. And we will copy this class. So example test. We're going to rename the copy to, I did it again, Dropbox login test. Okay, try not to make that mistake again. All right, so let's change our class, excuse me guys, our class names. And we need to create an instance of the class. So it was drop down login page. We'll just call it Dropbox. Listen, that's hilarious. Dropbox. Dropbox. Login page. Okay. Now let's create a new instance of the Dropbox login page. Okay. And we'll say new Dropbox login page, and then we'll pass in a driver. Okay. And guys, if you haven't already, make sure you check out your tech step. So, okay. So now what we want to do is we want the URL from Dropbox login, which is just Dropbox login. And let's replace this with our navigation. And we'll go to the URL. And so now we want to use the methods that were on that page. So we'll do, I believe it's just login, and we need to give it a username. So we'll say a string. All right, and then we'll just pass in our email. Okay, that should be enough to run the test. But here, let's throw in a thread.sleep because the test will run pretty quickly otherwise. Okay, we'll say like 7 seconds. Just slow it down while we see what it does. Okay, so let's go ahead and run the test. Just highlight the annotation, right click, run test, or Solution Explorer, the file, right click, run test. And let's turn on the Test Explorer. Give that a second. Oh, and we should give it a meaningful name in the method. So we'll change this test one. Excellent. So that is the conclusion of our test. We could go further, but let's not spam Dropbox, guys. This is just for practice. And be sure to give your test a meaningful name like Dropbox login test with email. All right. Thanks, guys. I will see you in the next one.